Jai Shri Ram, everyone. Oftentimes, we hear a stereotype about Indian society that it's very disorganized and chaotic, and you can't get Hindus organized to do anything, and we're way too independent and free thinking and all of that. And I think that this is only true if you have unrealistic expectations of some kind of unity or whatever the case may be, when you actually look at anything that's more specific, even at the very ground level of something that's totally unconnected to religion at all, you see that people in our society are perfectly capable of being very organized, goal oriented, results driven, having good time management, being prompt, so on and so forth. And what really got me thinking about this was two things. One, I was I've been losing a lot of weight and eating healthy. So I like to sometimes watch videos of people cooking unhealthy food. So I was watching these different videos of sweet stalls, people preparing these different kinds of sweets. And what's interesting is you have all of these a fairly small range of ingredients, right? Obviously the range of ingredients that are used in the making of Indian sweets are far narrower than the range that's used in making actual food, right? You have just a handful of ingredients that people are mostly using for sweets compared to actual main courses and so on. But what's interesting is these different places had so much kind of planning and care and thought as to how they were going to run this process to make, the 20 or 30 or 40 different items that they sell. And oftentimes they also sell different namkeens too. It's not just the mithai, right? And in order to do that, obviously with mechanization and all of that, you see on the large scale that that's very easy to do because you have machines. But when you're talking about people with a stall, at some address, it's very much just people being able to go through that routine and keep to everything and, do the same thing over and over again. And so I think that the fact that they have a very specific thing that they're trying to achieve, right? Getting this much of each individual item out there in the case at a particular time, that goal is really what brings you to this level of organization and all that. It's not that the organization and structure and so on comes first. It's that you have to get people to buy into a particular goal first, and then they can become disciplined. And so I think that when we're talking about Hindu Ekta and all of these different goals and desires that we have for Hindu society, we need to keep in mind that the absolute foundation is we have to get more and more people who are not really on our line of thinking into our line of thinking, and the people who are on our line of thinking, we have to get kind of actual concrete plans as to, you do this, you do that, someone else does this, based on their actual skill sets. And the other thing that got me thinking about this was I was watching these BAPS videos of some of their different holiday celebrations, like for Diwali, Govardhan Puja, and other things. And the reason for that is if you I think globally BAPS has the most beautiful, like visually impressive mandirs anywhere, and it's especially true if you live in the United States because of you have these big ones in like Chicago, Atlanta, New Jersey. Unfortunately, the New Jersey one has been caught up in some kind of lawsuit about the quote unquote working conditions that for India is probably quite normal, but in the West, you have all of these kinds of regulations about time and safety conditions and other things that are being used against them, unfortunately. But anyway, what is interesting about these celebrations that BAPS holds, and you can if you just search on YouTube's BAPS Annakut, you find all these different videos, and they're really impressive because you have all of these like malas that are surrounding pillars. you have all of these different dhoklas and different kinds of sweets and different kinds of namkeens that they're making. And then they're putting, not only are they making them and offering them to the deities and to the images of their gurus and so on, they are putting, each one in a particular kind of container that's going to look very impressive. They're all symmetrical. All the towers of the laddus are, the same height, and all the stacks of the rectangular slices of dhoklas and stuff are all the same height and so on. And it really shows an incredible level of precision, organization, structure, and planning, where you look at these shots of when they're kind of panning out to the whole thing and you see this huge room full of sweets and snacks and stuff that's organized very neatly and beautifully and also like color coordinated and things. Obviously they had to write out a very detailed plan of a diagram of, we want this here, we want that here, we want this other thing here, and then they had to work to get that to happen, right? And also, in order to do this, it's not only that you need these particular kinds of skills, you also have to figure out what skills your volunteers have, and then find how can we place these people in a place where they can actually do what their strength is, right? Because you have guys who have some kind of, maintenance or some kind of expertise with tools, who are building all sorts of different platforms and towers that you need for these kinds of displays. You have women or kids who have some kind of arts and crafts kind of, not expertise, but experience, that they're making all of these other kinds of, like flowers and other kinds of designs and displays. And, everybody is being, I'm not part of BAPS, so I don't really know what exactly the process of organizing or any of these things actually entails, but I'm just speaking from the view of someone who sees this going on and thinks, this must be the way that it's done, right? And I think that as Hindus, this is definitely something that we need to really work on as a society, where if you've ever been part of a Hindu community in the West, which, that's obviously my experience, and it's also going to be a very different experience from Hindus in India, since we're a tiny minority of people here. And so the type of person that comes into some kind of gathering wanting to contribute in some way, it's a different kind of psychology, where a lot of times they might just be like a regular person that's kind of interested in culture or has, a community of friends and so on in this, community, or whatever the case may be. But I think that one flaw that we have is that we don't really have this kind of big picture thinking, where we're thinking people have skill sets and we as a society have certain needs. We need to line these up. Instead, what I see a lot of is kind of people projecting outwards their own desire. So if someone has some, they do a particular kind of seva with some regularity, then they just kind of blindly tell every person that they meet that wants to do something, oh, do this, I do this, and, I like it, or it's beneficial to the community in some way. And I think that obviously that kind of exposure may be beneficial in some ways, but in life, people need to feel like they are being valued and their contribution actually has worth. And if you're putting someone in a place where they're doing some kind of unskilled thing that literally anybody could do, it's not going to kind of make them feel as fulfilled, and also it's not going to bring out the best in them in order to contribute the best way that they can than it would if you tried to say, okay, people with an engineering background, here's how that could be relevant to what we're doing. People with some kind of musical, Sangeet background, that's how that can be useful here, and so on and so forth, just kind of lining people up with, putting the square in the square hole, as opposed to trying to fit every single kind of peg into one particular kind of hole, to use a metaphor from childhood, right? And I think that whenever we talk about what we want to achieve, what needs to be done, this really needs to be the forefront and the template. Because what I often see is, like, people will have desires that are so idealistic that when reality doesn't conform to their fantasies about, literally all of the problems of Hindu society being solved in one day by one, heroic person like Sri Ram or something like that, then they just kind of get blackpilled and they think, oh, well, what's the point? Everything sucks. It's so terrible. We don't have any shot. I think that some of this kind of sentiment came out in the West Bengal election results this past month, or whenever it was, that the BJP gained a significant number of seats, even if you take away the people that just defected from parties. But so many of the people that I talked to were so crushed by the fact that TMC won again. And I think that having realistic expectations, this is the foundation. You got to have realistic expectations. Then you have to formulate a plan. Then you have to figure out all of the different people that are contributing to the success of this grand venture. How can we line up their skill sets and how they can best contribute to what we actually need, and that's how we are going to actually succeed at what we're doing. And also, this is how every single society, every single group or organization throughout the history of human society has ever achieved any of their goals. It's not by just throwing a dart randomly and hoping that it sticks, right? It's not by just putting in lots and lots of effort with no thought and no planning and no precision. It's all of these things coming together very neatly, very purposefully. So that's what I think that we need to do. And obviously, this is just food for thought. This is something to keep in mind whenever you're thinking about how can you contribute, how can people that contribute, when people come to you saying that they want to do something, or with some kind of idea in their head, how can you best guide them. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe.